Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's event, Artist Allies, How to Attract and Work with Agents and Managers. I am Willie Santiago. I am the Manager of Programs and Resources for APAP. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm a fair-skinned Hispanic person with brown eyes, medium-length wavy brown hair, and I'm wearing a white shirt with some arrows and X textures. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that APAP is located in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway, the Anacostan, and the Pamunkey people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. And I would like to pay my respect to the elders, both past, present, and future. Closed captioning will appear automatically on your screen. If you would like to disable the chat transcript, please click More on the bottom of the Zoom window and hide subtitle. Today, we are joined by ASL interpreters from Purple, Shivani Saunders and Rachel Smith. Thank you both for collaborating with us for today's event. APAP is your go-to resource for connections and resources you need to build your career as a performing arts professional in the presenting, booking, and touring field. Join APAP as we continue to provide opportunities for community, learning, commerce, and discovery. If you're interested in joining APAP, please visit apap365.org/membership for more information. Or if you have questions, you can please contact info@apap365.org. At APAP, we offer opportunities for year-round networking and professional development. We have a series of webinars coming up. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., we have our Thomas Artist Mobility session. It's the third in the series on US and Canadian artist visas. And then on June 26th at 2 p.m., we have our Arts Compensation Project webinar. This is based off of the compensation study that we did of presenting organizations. We'll be presenting some of the updated findings. And then on June 28th, we will at 3 p.m., we will have our final installment of the Thomas Artist Mobility session, and this will focus on US and Canadian artist taxes. For more information on upcoming programming, you can visit apap365.org/programs. I'll now turn things over to Krista Bradley.
Thanks, Willie. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. We're so excited to have this lineup, and I want to get started quickly. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit about our speakers today. Clay Ross and Jayme Stone are the co-founders of Compose Your Career, a program that they launched last year in partnership with APAP to help independent artists navigate the marketing and successful portion of their careers, and they'll talk more and more about that. And we have Gail Boyd and Trish Galfano representing our agents population today. Gail Boyd is president of Gail W. Boyd PC and her company. Gail Boyd is also a former president or immediate past president of the NAPAMA organization, North American Performing Arts Agents and Managers. And Trish Galfano is the owner of Myriad Artists, another boutique agency, both focusing on music. So I'll let them share more about who they are and what they do so that we can get started. And I would like to welcome Clay, Jayme, Gail, and Trish.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel here today. We did a brief outline over email, and we wanted to we're going to give everyone plenty of time to have the floor and to speak. Maybe it does make sense to just a quick intro from the group. And I'll say quickly that my name's Clay Ross. I'm a white male sitting in a very white room, strangely. And I am wearing black glasses, and I am really honored to be here. I'm a guitarist and vocalist and artist, and also very, very passionate about empowering artists to have successful self-managed careers and to do everything that they need to do to be functional allies in the process of thriving in this business with excellent partners be excellent partners for managers and agents, because it's definitely an ecosphere that we live in where we all interact and work together. So I'll pass it off now to Gail.
Hi, I'm Gail Boyd. I'm president of Gail Boyd Artist Management. Gail W. Boyd PC happens to be my law firm that owns the management company. I'm also a lawyer. I have a boutique jazz management company, but I do have one dance artist. For physical description, I'm a Black woman with a shaved head and blue glasses, and I'm in my office at home in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, and black shirt. Shall I pass it to Trish?
Sure. Hi, I'm Trish Galfano. I'm the president, I guess, I don't really think of it that way, of Myriad Artists. It's a boutique agency that has been around for, oh gosh, 22 years or so. It's evolved over the years, but we tend to represent a fairly wide range of artists, from Americana and roots artists, Celtic, some world music. I don't kind of try to limit myself, but we've tended to run in that lane. I am based in North Carolina, where I'm sitting in my home office. I guess I need to do the description thing. I seem to be wearing the very same thing that I wore for my picture. And we have a couple of other staff people, one who works in California and another one who lives in North Carolina, but a little distance away. I think that's it. Should I pass it to Jayme?
Sure. Hey folks, my name is Jayme Stone. I am here in my studio just outside of Boulder, Colorado. I have been making music in many forms and shapes for 25 plus years, having made my living for a long time as a touring artist, made many records, produced many more, have done work in sync and licensing, and have been on many sides. I've worked with agents and managers and publicists, and I've done all of those things on my own, and I have kind of swam in and out of having support and being very DIY my whole career, and channeled that knowledge into an online course that Clay and I co-founded. That's sort of the brain trust of our scrappy DIY turned professional business over a very long time. Yeah, I'm hoping that we can just dive into it in the next hour and share with you as much as we all can from kind of both sides of what is involved in creating a career that is going to attract the representation that a lot of people want, and then also to hopefully burst the bubble from the other side, that you don't actually get to sit back and just write songs all day. Once you have representation, you need to be a really good collaborator. And so this is going to be really fascinating to kind of hear what that process looks like from an artist's and an agent and manager's perspective. And I also happen to be wearing the exact same thing as in the picture. I'm a big believer in capsule wardrobes, and I'm also wearing glasses, and am a white man sitting in his studio. Thank you all.
So I think we want to start with just sort of unpacking dispelling the myth, and a big part of why we wanted to have this panel is because as artists, a big idea, this big dream that once we find the right manager, once we find the right, we have these, we watch movies of Clive Davis turn Whitney Houston into a superstar. And we have this, it's an overarching theme somehow in our culture that Simon Cowell or whoever else is going to discover you, and you're going to be found, and the manager's going to come and they're just going to make everything happen for you. And if for those of you who that has not happened for yet, I suppose that's why we're all here. And probably we're all well past that now. But a big part of what we're hoping to do is to disseminate information to as many artists as possible and hopefully reach as many younger artists as we possibly can, because this is a sustainable career model. This is a way that you can live your life. You can have a family as an artist. You can fulfill all the dreams that you have of performing on stages all over the world. And it takes collaborations with teams, and it takes you understanding the concerns and the challenges that your team members will face when working on your behalf. So that's a big part of what we want to kind of help to unpack today, that not only is there a lot of work that needs to be done for you to shape your story and to deliver a proof of concept with your art that will allow you to attract a potential partner, an agent or a manager, but that there's also a lot of work that you need to understand from the agent and manager's perspective on what they need from you once you are doing business together and once you are working together to make that relationship sustainable. Before we pass it off to Trish to hear about what she's looking for for artists that she works with and tell us more about her roster, I'm wondering if Jayme, just from the artist perspective and from our perspective, as founders of Compose Your Career, if you have anything else to add.
Sure. What I'll add right now is just that most of the same things that an agent or a manager is looking for in an artist to bring them onto their roster are the things that are going to make your own independent career happen and thrive. And so I actually don't think there's like a huge shift necessarily that needs to happen. Most of the time when artists come to us and say, we really want to find an agent or manager, et cetera, I'm mostly just going to give them advice and tools and resources to actually bolster their career, which is to say, the branding, the kind of storyline, which is kind of like your bio and visual identity, really have that developed so that you can kind of carve out the niche that you want to occupy in the world, and really telegraph that in a clear, compelling, and creative way. I like to think that everything that you send out should be aligned with, unified with, and as compelling as your music. And that's everything from your social media presence to how you write newsletters to how you write business emails, et cetera, et cetera. And then breaking into new markets, doing publicity, either yourself or with the support of a publicity firm, attending conferences. These are all things that you're going to want to do as an artist to build your profile enough that you can attract an agent or a manager. And of course, if you don't attract an agent and a manager, these are the things you need to be doing anyway if you're steering the ship of your own career. So I sort of feel like there's not such a duality, And then I'll say on the flip side, if and when you do partner with representation, you are likely going to need to stay very involved. I'm friends with a bunch of very well-known artists who, are playing big stages and have won Grammys and are on TV and la-di-da. And every time I hang out with them, I'm endlessly surprised at how involved they are. People who are playing 10,000 seat theaters that are still getting ticket updates during sound check and are on it with their management about, what they can do to push sales in the last 3 hours, et cetera. Things that are shocking, I recently listened to an interview with one of my favorite indie pop bands, Sylvanesso, and they're involved in every single design decision, like even the banner that's on their Bandcamp page or on their Instagram, what is pinned to their Instagram profile. They're in touch with their designers and their management about what everything looks like and feels like. And, it's sort of heartening and demoralizing, I think, for some of us to hear news like that, because we all wish that there are people out there that we look up to, that we aspire to be, that are just kind of sitting back, collecting royalty checks and making wild creative art when they're not on stage. But the fact is, this is such a collaborative process. And I believe that you learn how to be a good collaborator by doing all those things, so that when you first, partner up with a new agent or manager, you already understand the lay of the land. They don't need to explain everything to you. You can just like be ready. Here are all my assets in a Dropbox. Here's this, that, and the other. We'll get into the nitty gritty, hopefully as the hour goes on. But that's a quick overview of sort of like the orientation that I hold. All right.
Should we pass it off to Trish to share from the agent's perspective?
Okay. So it's interesting. I have this sort of little outline prepared, but I mean, Jayme said a lot there, and I fundamentally, I agree with what he's saying. I do think that you can't just, getting an agent isn't a panacea. It's not going to necessarily, make your life complete. One thing I would say, and I'm going to just slightly deviate from what Jayme was saying a bit, from the standpoint is that when I first got into business, my accountant at the time gave me a book. What was it called? The E-Myth, Why Small Businesses Fail. And the basic premise is that you can't do it all. That there's no way to sustainably do everything forever yourself and grow, and that everybody burns out. And I've really taken that to heart in how I think about what I do in my business. So while I totally agree that, you have to have it together, just to put it in a nutshell, so that the people that you want to work with can take the ball and run with it. I think the reason you would hire other people is so that because you don't want to or can't sustain doing everything successfully by yourself. I know I can't. So I have other people that work with me. So I have sort of broken this down into 3 areas to focus on when I am starting a conversation with an artist. One is the artistic, 2 are the numbers. These may or may not go in this order, but I think they kind of do. 3 is kind of like, where are we as an agency? And to talk a little bit about that, and think about that and what you're doing in context of what we're doing, what we're looking to do as an agency, and how you fit in. So those are the 3 major areas that, this is really just sort of the nitty gritty of if somebody approaches me, the very first thing to start with the artistic is that I go to your website. I look to see if you've got it together. The very first thing I'm going to look for is live video. I don't want to see, not that they aren't cool and I might not enjoy them, but your studio produced music videos. I want to see what you do live. And part of this whole evaluation is because, as a salesperson, and that's effectively what we are, it's my job to talk to the buyers that are out there to get you work. And part of that is also being able to assure them that you have what they need to be able to successfully produce a show. So I'm looking at that whole package, but I have been burned once by an artist whose manager presented me with a studio produced video of this young band, and it sounded great and they looked great. And then I went down and saw them and they were not great. And it was kind of one of those like never again sort of experiences. So that's kind of what I do. So I'm wanting to, do I like what you're doing? I don't have to love what you do. It doesn't have to be my first love artistically, but it's always great if you really are enthusiastic about the artists that you're working with. Are you unique in the market? Are you bringing something new to the table? What's the buzz that's going on about you out there? I might ask promoters or other agents, if they know anything about you. Do you have a team, or are you working by yourself? You don't necessarily, a lot of artists that I work with don't have managers, but, you know, I'm looking for that. I a lot of times cross a lot of lines that I probably shouldn't in terms of writing copy and helping people do things, but I always look for that. Sort of that kind of thing. So that's like the first thing is I want to look. If I don't see that you have high quality video, and I do like what you do, the very first thing I'm going to say, and I probably will say it a zillion times, and I'm sure I drive my artists crazy, get live video. Go take high quality live video. If you don't do almost anything else, you've got to have that, because I think promoters really just want to see. They just don't want to hear the music necessarily. They want to know that you're going to, especially if you're in the performing arts world. It might be a little different if it's a club band or a hard ticket situation. But they want to know what your show is going to be like. Are you going to entertain their audience for an evening? So it's more than just the music. It's, you know, how you are as, or the show, if you're not just a musician, not just presenting music. The second part are the numbers, and this is sort of the nitty gritty. The next thing, if you get past that first stage and I'm interested, then the next thing I'm going to do is ask you for your numbers. I want to see a spreadsheet of where you've been working over a period of time. Now, COVID has kind of thrown a wrench into that. Usually you can't go back too far because it becomes irrelevant, but I'm looking to see, where are you working? Obviously, how much are you making? But I'm also looking for patterns. I want to see, are you just doing the same thing year after year after year? Why is that, if that's the case? You know, what's the growth trajectory? Are you growing? Have you taken a dip? Did you have a big career and now you've dropped down? I mean, there's information there that feeds right into, you know, any conversation that we're going to have about what you're looking for and whether this is suitable as a relationship. So I want to see how many dates a year you're working. I want to see bonus points if you know your grosses and how many tickets you're selling and that kind of thing. I can usually discern from the venues that you provide that, you know, kind of what the size rooms are. But I think this is a much more of a hard ticket world these days, even in performing arts. And I think you need to be paying attention to that. I mean, knowing that information feeds into us having a conversation and me being able to know, you know, if you're playing 30 dates a year and you come to me and say, I want to work 150 dates, then I say, well, how do you think you're going to do that? You know, what's realistic? Are you being realistic? Because, you know, unless something is massively blowing up in your life, that's a big leap. So I'm looking to also understand if you are realistic in your expectations of what I'm going to be able to do for you. And, you know, if you want 150 dates a year, do I want that workload? Which kind of feeds right into the next part, which is where are we as an agency? What's our existing roster? What's our current workload? Do you fit in with, you know, who we are, where we want to go? It's work that we do every day, and there's only, you know, so many contracts a year that we can process, and I need to balance that out also with my staff and the time that they have and the resources that we have in agency. So I want to know if I have the capacity to take you on. I don't want you to be disappointed. I don't want to be disappointed, and I want to certainly be able to, if I think I can do something with and for you, I want to feel realistically that I can at least attempt to accomplish that. And so that is really important. You know, the kind of duh moment of this really is, you know, we only get paid if you're working. So, you know, there's no point in us trying to take somebody on if we don't feel it can work for all of us. I mean, one of the questions might be, can you afford to pay me 10, 15, whatever percent, if sometimes in the performing arts world, 20% if you're working with an artist manager. So it really depends. There are a lot of things to consider. And along with that is, I mean, there is, we can talk a little bit more about this in another section, but the communication, when we have that conversation, I'm also seeing, I want to put straight out there to you, I'm a human being and I will do my best, but I may mess up at some point. And I want to know that there's a relationship there, that at working at this kind of intimate level with an artist, that there's going to be communication and that we're going to work together at some level as a team. So that's really important. To me, because this is how I spend my day. And then the other part just is sort of a business evaluation. How many contracts as an agency, what have we done historically? How can we stretch? Where do we want to stretch? If there's a cost to being in business. And at the end of the day, that cost per contract, if I'm making X and I'm processing Y number of contracts, that number has to end up at least a break even and ideally some level of profit for the agency. It doesn't have to be crazy, but it needs to be there. And what that means is that I oftentimes have taken on artists who are not earning at quite that level. But if I think I see a trajectory for growth and I feel like I can work with that, then I might say, okay, I'm going to take on. And what I think artists need to understand is that in that scenario, an agency is actually investing in you, because I am upside down in many cases. If I just look at the straight numbers of what you make and what my percentage is of that, until I can say, here's the path, and we are consensus and we try to make that happen. So, I might have some artists making more, and in a way, those that I'm making more with are kind of loading the ones that I'm developing, if you know what I mean. Then the last thing I was just going to say is, at the end of the day, it's your name on the marquee, not mine. And that you do drive the market. And Jayme, what Jayme said is right. You need to be pushing that and driving it and making sure that you have your stuff together. Is the market interested in what you're doing? We hope so. But at the end of the day, that is really up to you as artists to be driving. So I think that is my piece.
Thank you so much, Trish. That was you just said so many valuable things, and the chat thread, people are just like, wow, this is such valuable information. And I couldn't agree more. I think and your last point leads us straight into introducing Gail and probably how she can share her perspective from the side of management, because I know from the agent side, it is really up to the manager and the artist to drive interest in your capacity to sell. So Gail, please take it away.
Thank you. I was thinking about something that Trish said earlier, and that is that she doesn't have to love the music as an agent. She has to see the value in it. She has to know that she can book it. As a manager, I have to love it because if I don't, I can't think of the adjectives to sell my client if I don't love what it is they're doing. It's too many times where as a manager, I don't get paid for the work that I do until later on. And so if I don't have the motivation from the very beginning, I find it very hard to work with that person. A lot of people don't understand the difference between a manager and an agent. They sort of think that they're interchangeable, and they're actually not. And my job one of my jobs as a manager is to find an agent for my clients. That's like the first thing that I do. If I take them on, they either already have an agent or I believe so much in what they're doing that I'm willing to take a chance and find an agent for them. And there's the off chance that I can book a date or two here or there. because in New York, which is where my office is, I can book people who are under my management company without me having a separate agent's license. So, but I don't try to do too much of that. My first job is to try to find an agent whose sole job is to try to sell that client and get gigs for that client. Mine is very different. When I'm trying to decide, excuse me, if I want to take a client on for management, I do what's called trying to determine if that client has price. What is their price? And I'm going to share my screen for a minute, if I can, to tell you what I mean by that. I'm on the wrong page first. Okay, so the price of obtaining management for me is, and I'm doing all, music primarily, so this really is relevant to people who are musical artists. And so the first thing I want to know, the P is the artist performing anywhere? They don't have to be at Carnegie Hall. But if they're just sitting at home deciding that one day they want to perform out, they're not ready for management. They need to at least start working someplace. And as Trish said, have something I can see so that I can say, yeah, I can get behind this. So that's the P in price. The R has the artist recorded. Once again, it doesn't have to be a Blue Note recording or Sony, but if they have not put what they're doing down in a form that I can hear and share with people, I don't think they're ready for management. And the I is the artist innovating. And I say that because, for example, I do jazz. I love John Coltrane. I already have every album that John Coltrane ever did. So if all you're doing is going out and repeating everything John Coltrane did, then I'm not going to be as interested, because what are you bringing to the table? What is your uniqueness? Are you taking a John Coltrane song, for example, and using different instrumentation? Are you arranging it differently so that I can hear you in the music? And the C is, are you composing? Because it's not enough for you to take somebody else's music all the time and innovate and arrange what they're doing. What are you writing? The mission statement for my company is preserving jazz as an art form. If you're not writing new music, you're not preserving it. You're just, sort of innovating other people's music, but I need for you to also be a writer, which is why the E is really important. And that is the artist involved in education? It's important to me that you be willing to do master classes and clinics and community engagements and things like that. I don't want to have the kind of artist who's just going to sit at home and do the P, the R, the I, and the C and never want to tell anybody about what it is they're doing. I want you to be able to share that in a way that makes sense. And also, just selfishly speaking, it helps to add to the price if we can say you can do a concert and a community engagement, or a concert and a residency, and things like that. So if the client that I'm looking at has what I call price, then I'm very interested in continuing the conversation. And then after that is, what is the role of a manager in an artist's career? And so I would say that as the recording part, we can look at it different ways. We can have a traditional record deal, which actually I'm trying to convince all my clients not to do. I'm trying to convince, I'm really horrible about that, but I just think that why would we work and have the record company give us an advance and then they own it forever. And then after you have paid the record company back, you still only get like 12%. So it's like borrowing, $50,000 from a label, paying it back in royalties, and then you still don't ever actually own it. The record company still owns it. So the traditional record deal, I'm not that interested in. I do like the idea of licensing the music. So we find the money, we record it, and then we take it to a label and we license it for a period of years. And after that, it reverts back to you and you own it. And that's really this is way different than when I first started doing this 31 years ago. I was always trying to get record deals. Now I really don't care so much about a traditional record deal. And how do you license it? You can do crowdfunding. Everybody knows about GoFundMe and all the other ones that you can crowdfund and get money. Or you might have a rich uncle or aunt somewhere and you can get the money from them. That's been rare, but I actually did have it happen. So that's the recording part of what I do as a manager. You see the artist is in the middle there and the management is in yellow going all around, which means the artist is the key, but I'm the wheel. I'm kind of making all this happen for the artists. When we talk about marketing, social media, when I started this, there was no such thing. There was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no nothing. 31 years ago, we had to do it the old-fashioned way. But now I understand that, and I'm really impressed when the artist has a great social media presence. I think you all have heard maybe about Samara Joy, who won not only Best Jazz Vocalist, but she won Best New Artist, which was across all the genres. Well, she's got a TikTok thing of millions of people, and that's why I think she was so popular. But radio still helps get the word out. And so I work with getting radio promotions people who can tell people that you should listen to this song, and then of course the internet and streaming and things like that. So the marketing aspect, that's what I do as a manager. And then when it's publicity, I always try to hire a publicist if we can afford it, but if not, then we have to create a publicity scheme. How are we going to get the word out about you, and how often are you going to, for example, post something, or try to get something in Downbeat Jazz, Jazz Times, those kind of things. And there you go with the last one, booking agent. We can either you can book yourself, which is pretty unsuccessful for most people, or we can get 2 different booking agents. And that's how I have been working in the past. I get someone who does domestic, which is US and Canada. And then I get someone who does international. And sometimes the international people will do Mexico and South America, and sometimes I will give that to the domestic. But that just gives you sort of a picture of what I do as management and what I look for when I'm making a decision about taking on an artist.
Gail, I love the visual. That is so beautiful. That helps so much too, because I love that the manager is around, like surrounding the whole thing. Because literally, I think the
artist is the spoke. I mean, like nothing happens.
It all comes from the art. And if the artist isn't making art, and the artist doesn't continue to make art, then that's what Jayme and I teach always, that your art is, no matter how much of this you're taking on for yourself, it's like if you don't make time in your day for your art, then none of this there's no point in any of it. So yeah, I love that. I love the visual, and that's at the center of it. And I'm curious, I kind of wanted to unpack, and I think we could maybe open it up a little bit more for the panel to jump in and dialogue a little bit. We're going to open it up to the everyone soon, but I think we're going to keep this amongst the 4 of us for a moment. And just, I wanted to ask, so Gail, for example, like how, because we wanted to get into a little bit of like sustaining these careers together, right? So let's say now you've decided to take someone on, and you're working together, and you're aligned together. I mean, I want to help kind of dispel for some of the artists, like what the realities are around this. And like, so Gail, for example, like, do you completely take over your artists' social media accounts and do all of their posts for them?
No, because I want them to speak with their own voice. I would say something that would sound so corny. I'm a lawyer, and I sound like a lawyer when I'm doing social media, and it's not convincing. I want my clients to maintain their own social media. And while they're out on the road, they're getting pictures taken, they're taking pictures with other people, or they're having people do a video of them on the stage. And then they are saying what's going on. That's actually more authentic and gets more followers than if I were to try to take over their social media. And it's just not authentic, and it doesn't work. It doesn't ring true.
Well, and I think that's just one of the examples of the kinds of things that a lot of artists think that, everything's going to be done for them. But there's so many things that, in this climate that we're in today, I mean, and in this field, this part of the field. And I think that we did get into some vocabulary that I want to make sure everybody, maybe who's new to our field, understands. Like Trish was throwing around, soft ticket or performing arts center versus hard ticket. Okay. And a lot of time, it took me a long time to understand the difference, because I was definitely that hungry young artist, came on the scene, and I would go to every booth and be like, are you looking for new artists? Because I want to work 150 shows a year. I'm ready to dive into the inferno of, giving myself to my music and play live. And I just think that everyone needs to sort of understand the sort of, like Trish said, is that even a reality? And if you're even going to do that, what does that even look like? How on earth is that even a reality? So I guess I wanted to sort of unpack too with something that Trish said, which was the idea of it not being personal. Now, I do think the relationship between a manager and an artist, it often is a lot more personal because, and I think you hit on that, Gail, like it's hard for you to take on an artist that you don't feel truly connected to in almost a spiritual way, because the amount of work that goes in to actually getting to like financial stability, or from let's say from artistic excellence, and art it's abstract, right? So your belief in the art to it having actual value in the marketplace, that can sometimes be a journey.
And it can take a long time. And I often say that being a manager to an artist is as close to a marriage, and I am married, is as close to a marriage as any other relationship I've ever had with anybody, because there are days, with your spouse, there are days that you look at that person and you say, oh my God, what could I do without this person? They're just so wonderful. And then there are days you look at that person and say, how in the world did I get here?
Yeah.
You're committed to the mission, and you stick with it because you saw something in that person when they were at their best, and you are willing to stick it out. And that's why it's as close to a marriage, because not every day is rosy. And as a manager, it might be 6 months before I earn a dime.
Yeah.
It might be 7 to 9 months before I earn any money. And I will have spent money in many ways, but I'm committed to the mission of getting this person from one place to the next. So to me, it's very much like, it's very intimate. That's why I have to love it. And
if I might just jump in, because I feel like I need to defend myself from being sort of a caricature of, the agent.
No,
I wasn't saying
I
that.
mean, when I said that, I feel like I think if you maybe need to understand a little bit about the different types of agencies too. So that if you are working in a more commercial world, I mean, I'm presuming most people here are working in mostly the performing arts world. We're a smaller boutique agency, but we book clubs and listening rooms and performing arts centers and festivals and outdoor events and the occasional private or corporate event. So we're working with all different kinds of buyers. And when I said I don't need to love what you do, I do need to see that there's value in it. It's wonderful if I can love what you do. But I guess I need to see that somebody out there loves what you're doing, and so that I can see that path. And then the other thing I think I wanted to point out is, if you're working in a smaller boutique with a smaller boutique agency, or probably management firm, maybe even, I don't know that for sure, but you are going to work much more intimately with that agency and that agent, and you are going to have that much more one-on-one relationship and the communication. Whereas if, and my job seems to cross a lot of those lines, sometimes much to my chagrin, that I'm doing some of those things, and I want a Gail in the world to be there. But, I mean, we also provide a service to our client agents. We make sure your paperwork is done. Is your contract executed? Do we have a deposit? Do you have at least the information that you need to be able to get in touch with the buyer and promote your show? So there is work that we actually do and deliver as well. And in the bigger agency, it might just be slapping dates in a book. Right. And somebody else is kind of in charge of all those other particulars.
And I just wanted to follow up to further define, because I don't think I actually defined it, but the hard ticket thing would be like, if you're John Mayer and you can just send out, you can be at Eddie's Attic in Atlanta, Georgia, and tonight you send a tweet and you could sell, the room out. Because
actually, I'm gonna differ with that slightly.
Okay.
Yes, that's true.
I was just trying to give a gross, difference between like a soft and hard.
Well, a soft ticket, I mean, it's kind of shifted over the years in the performing arts world, even where it used to be subscription-based series. And, you know, so that was more of a soft ticket sort of a situation. And you might not go back ever, or maybe not for 5 or 8 years to play that venue. When I think about hard ticket, I'm looking at history. So some of that is performing arts ticket history, but I'm looking at seeing, you know, yeah, you're playing in this theater or that club or whatever, and I can see that history of ticket sales, so that I can, that's part of that, whatever it was, that price, I forget which part of your thing, Gail, but where we're looking
Performing,
at,
that was the P.
yeah, where are you fitting, you know, have you just stayed, you're earning 1,500, 5,000, where, you know, has it stayed there? Is there growth? Are you selling more tickets? You know, that's hard ticket in my opinion. And that, you know, the repeat hard ticket is I played here and I've gone back and I've gone back. That to me is hard ticket.
Yeah, that's great. Where there's some continuity, you can see a history of growth, of audience building, etc. One other piece to the hard and soft ticket, to my mind, is also that soft ticket venues are often where the venue itself is bringing a portion of the audience, sometimes
Right.
bigger or smaller, right? Which is to say, if you play a festival for the first time in a state you've never even been in, and of course the audience is just going to be there, likely for some headliners, not for you. They'll happen to see your show and you'll grow your audience. That's more of a kind of, I'll call that a soft ticket. Or in a performing arts center where they have a series, again, they might have Billy Joel in their 10,000 seat theater, and then they have a black box theater where they have a series, and they just allot a certain amount of money per year for the concerts in that series. And those shows can break even. I've even played in places where the venue does not even expect the black box theater shows to actually even break even. They will lose a little bit of money, you know, maybe $400 or $500. That's coming out of their, you know, annual operating budget, and they can give you a guarantee. And even at a sellout, you know, it's not at all a profit for them, but they see that as a helping you build in that market. And their hope is that they will do that a couple of times, and then you might play their medium-sized theater, and eventually, hopefully, some of those artists will play the larger theater, and there's a kind of long-term investment. And that's one of the beautiful things in the performing arts world. One question that I wanted to kind of throw out there to sort of bring some of these things really down to earth for everybody is I'm curious, maybe Gail, you could start with, what are some of the best practices and the things that you look for or you really appreciate in artists in terms of the kind of day-to-day, week-to-week communication? You know, I know when I've had an agent, we would sometimes talk, you know, 3 times a week, you know, and be going back and forth and helping to refine each other's ideas. You know, a pitch doesn't work, and sometimes I would go in and say like, oh, actually that's really cool, but here's another angle that I have noticed is really helpful. Let's see if we can go back and maybe get some. So I'm just curious how much you like an artist to be involved, where are the places where you don't necessarily want an artist to be overly involved. I'm curious how that works for you.
I had a client once, and my assistant at the time told me, this person wants to be famous more than he wants to be good. And when she said that, it made all the sense in the world to me, because there were things that person was absolutely not interested in us discussing. And then there were other things that he was worried about. Can I get in this magazine or that magazine, or can I get a photo shoot with this person? And it was never about the music. And I would say, he would say to me, well, what should I do for my next album? And I would say, I have absolutely no idea. You're the musician. You tell me what the next album is. I have to make it happen for you. And so I like for the artist to be really involved with the creative process. What's your story that you're trying to tell? Because I really have this feeling that artists are actually really special creatures, that they are here to tell the story for the rest of us. They're here to help us get through hard times, good times. And so what is your story? What is it? Why is it that you are here to create this music? And that's what I want you working on. And then you tell me what that story is. And so it could be, you know, I'm writing this music for the fact that there are not enough women composers. And so therefore I'm trying to unearth more women composers, and I'm going to arrange their music. And so now you have a theme, and now we're talking about that. And then I can say, well, did you know about Mary Lou Williams, or did you know about this? And so that's kind of what I'm doing in that regard. I can have somebody else who's telling me, I really want to do third stream, where you're kind of mixing jazz and classical music together. And that's really all they want to do. And so I'm saying, well, so what classical person is attracting you right now? And how do you want to mix that in with what you're writing? And so then that's what I want you to go off and do, and then come back to me and say, Gail, I've got it. I'm ready to go into the studio, and let's do it. And then it's my job to pull all that together for you so you can make that happen. So what's your story? I mean, I think that if you're an artist and you're creating and you don't have an idea of where you're headed, then you're not ready for management yet. You have to find your story. What is it that makes you get up in the morning? What wakes you up out of the bed saying, I gotta do this if I don't do anything else? Because when you have that kind of impetus to get the music out there, then you're ready for me and Trish. Because then I can say to you, okay, here's some people. If you want to do this, but you don't know all the things, then I can help you do the research, and we'll find the people who do the kind of music that you're talking about you want to write. And then I can go to Trish and say, this person, you really ought to listen to this person, because they worked over here. They didn't work much. They worked at their uncle's pizzeria, performing every Thursday night, but it was always the most crowded that it was. But now that they have this theme and this story, and they're doing social media and we're getting followers, then I think I can probably talk Trish into saying, okay, let me see a video. And then she'll see the video and she'll say, okay, I'll take this person onto my roster. And then Trish and I are talking, not the artist so much, but Trish and I are saying, she's asking me, well, do you have, when's the record coming out? And then I can say January. So she'll say, well, then I'll start to try to get dates in March. And so that's what we're talking about on a daily basis. The artist is not going to be involved in that at all, because I want the artist focused on that story. What's your story? Who's your personnel? Who do you want? What's your instrumentation? And then Trish and I can kind of try to make it happen.
And I'll just throw in there, just on the heels of what Jayme was asking, I think, is what, I mean, I need to have communication, or if there's a manager, then we're communicating. But at the point, one of the things that I find really difficult, because I do love engaging with my client artists, is that I both need it, and it can also, there's also a point at which I can't do anything else. There's only so many hours in a day. And it's like, I try to schedule my artist meetings at certain times a day so that I have time to, and I have to say, if I spend an hour with you, I'm not spending that hour booking shows, right, and getting you work. So it's a bit of a dance that I have to do in terms of how I allocate my time that way. And it's, I don't know the easy answer, because sometimes you just have to do that. But, we have to, it needs to happen periodically and actually fairly regularly, sure, but it also can't be like endless phone calls and conversations. So.
But at least once a week for me, I'm touching bases, and we have a running status report that I'm kind of saying, these are the things that I'm working on and I need for you to do that. And they're kind of responding in the status report. It's like a Google Doc.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you both saying, I mean, you're trying to build this mastermind, and you're not trying to handicap one another at all. You're trying or inhibit one another from doing the work, but you're trying to, really align and work together and communicate as needed. And I love what you're saying, Gail. It's like the manager is there to help the artist do something and not to be somebody.
Right.
And right. I love that, and the manager can't tell you what you want to do or what you need to do to be somebody.
You have to tell me that. So
yeah, you have to tell the manager what you want to do.
Right.
And they have to find the way to make it work. You work together to shape it, maybe for the marketplace. Maybe the manager has more, I love the image again, the oversight of the whole puzzle for the marketplace and how we can adapt this vision that you have a little
That's
bit, maybe we make these little tweaks that are going to make it move, right?
That's right.
Go ahead.
I'm
Sir.
wondering if we can open the floor up to some questions.
Yeah, for anybody, if it was confusing in our session, I mean, I think we were all open to stay in for another 10, 15 minutes to take some questions and hear from anyone here to open it up. So if everybody's good to hang for a little longer, thank you. We do the hand raising thing. You want to call people, Jayme, or?
Sure. Yeah, you can either. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Okay. I'm going to open with something a little different just because I feel it's important. Has nothing to do with who I am other than I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor. Get a second opinion whenever possible. I've been doing this for 50 years. Manager, agent, tour manager, booking agent, tour manager, booking agent. I wanted to open by simply saying, as has been illustrated here, if you're seeking a manager or an agent to fulfill your career goals, the first question I'd like for you to ask is, why are you here? You've never done this before, or you've never done this successfully before. So the first word that comes into being is trust. The second thing is collaboration. And the third thing, which is really hard for some people, is how to listen. I've seen far too many talented artists never get past first base because they're not willing to trust. You know, why did you come to us in the first place? Career paths are different for everybody, for every genre of music, for every genre of performance. We've been doing this for a long time. Gail, I'm embarrassed to say that I used to manage law firms too. But I know your name for decades.
Oh, Lord.
Well, but it's just that, you know, we are in business because we have a big heart. We're not William Morris and ICM and CAA. We're here to help people go from one level to the next and perhaps on from there. And when you check our roster of artists and you say, I might fit in there, as has been said before, there's a lot of material that you need to have to show that you have your act together. But like trust and being able to listen, I think are two things that seems to be very hard for artists to develop. That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Lior, do you want to ask a question?
Sure, yeah. Hey, I'm Lior. I'm a drummer here in Colorado, not too far from Jayme. Yeah, my question is, so my bandmate, we actually met over Instagram, and he lives over in Europe, in Switzerland and Ireland. So obviously we're not doing live shows, but we are recording a lot of music and trying to get going on social media and stuff. I think ideally what we're looking for is to maybe record or get our recorded music into, get it placed in TV shows, movies, things like that. So if that is the situation for a band, do you still, are there managers? I would imagine there are managers or agents who are, you know, strictly in that realm of the music industry and the arts industry. Is that the path to go to, or is it not worth our time finding an agent or a manager and kind of reaching out to music supervisors directly?
I have a client who has made a decision that he only wants to write for television and film. And he's done a couple of small ones, but he is dedicating himself. He's going to teach and then try to break into that. Terrence Blanchard being one of his idols. You know, I want to be like Terrence. I want to write for movies and TV and maybe even do an opera. I encouraged him for two reasons. One, we weren't having that much success with him in getting gigs, but he was having pretty good success with he did a couple of Showtime. And after he got in that milieu, then he actually wrote a song for another Showtime show. It's only 2 or 3 things, But we talked about it not too long ago and said, let's go in that route. Let's just try to do that. And I know I have a friend who is in a company with a music supervisor where they are taking in what they're calling libraries of sound. You know, you can give them 4 or 5 songs and they will try to pitch them. And that's what we're going to do, in addition to, you know, trying to get an agent who will pitch to other music supervisors. So I think, yeah, still look for a manager. And not performing live is, you know, it's not a complete bar because your partner is in Europe. So, you know, you all can get together and perform live, but basically what you're saying, you wouldn't meet my performing. You wouldn't meet, but you'd have rice. You wouldn't have price, but you'd have rice.
Well, so
So,
even the live videos that Trish mentioned, you know, like I thought about that when she was talking about that and thinking, well, I suppose him being the singer, he could sing some songs over in his neck of the woods over in Europe, but not so much us together. So but that's helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
You're right. I'd also just add that, you know, it sounds like you're very clear on what your goals are. And so you probably don't want to be pitching a performing agent, you know, like what this does. You want to be looking for a sync agent. And there are many, 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 many sync agencies. And these days, a lot of artists are actually doing non-exclusive deals with more than one sync agent. And there are really important discussions to be had to make sure, you know, people don't step on each other's toes. But in general, you can have sync agents, especially if you're doing a lot of different kinds of music, that will be orbiting in different worlds, different genres, different parts of the country, etc., or different parts of the world. And so, yeah, your seeking representation might actually just be focused on sync representation only. And you might not need a manager, because usually a manager is dealing with sync and licensing as well as performing, as well as album releases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that might help just kind of clarify what you're looking for. And I'll just say, similarly to the advice that I opened up with, proving yourself, you know, as Gail said, this artist had something in Showtime before they started, you know, really reaching out to more people. So if you can get some kind of placement, whatever it is, it becomes a kind of proof of concept. You know, have a foothold in the marketplace. You have something that people can see, and, you know, the assets that you will need will be different. You know, you'll want to have a demo reel, things that are synced to picture, for instance, like, you know, rather than this performance video that you're going to want if you're trying to get gigs, you know, in performance venues, you're going to want a nice sync demo, which could be a playlist of all the different songs that you have already done, or you can actually sync it to picture, which is a way for people to see what your music looks like, you know, with visuals, which can be really important.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you, Jayme.
Chloe's asking, should you reach out to agents and managers once you feel ready, or is it better to stay in your lane and wait to be approached?
No, you better reach out when you think you're ready. You might get rejected a few times, but you keep going until, you know.
I want to add to that you will be lucky to be rejected a few times, because mostly you will get silence.
That's so true, but that's not me.
Because people know you.
No, but I'm saying I will send a response to anybody who writes to me.
That's
and
sweet.
most of the time, 99.9% of the time, I'm saying no. But I always say, and I really do mean this, I never take lightly an artist's request that I work with him or her. I never take that lightly, because what somebody is doing is saying, here's my career, take it and help me do something with it. And that's awesome if you really think about it. So I don't just ignore it. When somebody thinks enough of me to ask me to take them on, I think enough of them to at least say no. I mean, you know, I just don't think it's a good look.
I try to reply. I always, my response is, you know, I always take a look. I will keep my ear to the ground. You never know if I might just fall in love with what you're doing, or maybe it's just really the right fit. So I will take a look, but I think probably most of the time you know, I'm not either not able or not the right fit. But you know, you might be surprised. I get a lot of times the artists that I take on are coming through a manager or another agent who said, hey, you know, this artist approached me, but we can't take them on, or somebody I know who says, you know, I think they'd be a great fit on your roster. So somebody else in the industry that I know and respect who has either referred me to look at this person or has sent this person my way.
And I'll just add that, you know, there are things that you can do as an artist to sort of grease the wheel of these conversations. And sometimes it actually is a process that takes many, many, many years, you know? So going to conferences is a really great way to do that. It's actually absolutely not the time to be pitching an artist or manager, because at conferences, they're there to be representing people. But it's a time where you might, in a more social situation, be introduced by a mutual friend. You know, another thing is if you are playing in the town the agent lives in and you invite them to your show, that's a really nice gesture. And again, this is something that could be done sometimes years before you're even totally ready, you know? All the people that I've ever worked with professionally are people that I knew or knew me or were following my work for some years, literally, before. It's very rare that, you know, something's going to happen where a manager or an agent suddenly hears about you and is like, you know, a lot of times people are following along, taking notes, going, wow, this artist would be amazing, but I need to see them, you know, reach a certain level or have proven themselves in the marketplace or have done a few things. And, you know, there are lots of professional folks out there who are in love with all kinds of music and all kinds of artists that are just hoping that the alignment is going to be right. And, you know, I feel like Trish spoke to that really clearly. The alignment has to be right because it has to be a win-win for everybody or it's just not sustainable. And so I think you can actually make friends or be collegiate, you know, in some way in advance. And then if the alignment's there at a certain point, bam, it can happen really easily.
And I just wanted to jump in and sort of emphasize this because I think it's just so key that none of this is personal. It's so difficult for the artists. And I just want to speak on this because I've just been there and I've gone through this sort of, you know, transformation of being, you know, taking things super personally, trying so hard and almost trying too hard. And it just took time. And 20 years later, you know, everything that was my whole life in music and pushing, it all just kind of aligned. And then we got like Rinky Tanky and it just blew up and everything happened, you know what I mean? But it was all this kind of pushing towards that. And a lot of no's along the way. And so just speaking from my own personal experience to encourage all artists out there, that none of it is personal. You know, when the agents say no, not right now, or when Gail, like she said, she's saying no 99.9% of the time, you know, it literally is, you know, it's better for you to keep pushing ahead, focusing on your art and doing the best job that you can, booking and managing yourself until the right opportunity with the right person aligns. It's so key. And I also want to just say again, to emphasize what Jayme said, and Trish and I were joking about it at the beginning, is do not pitch agents and managers at the conference. Just don't do it. It's just poor form. I've done it. I know from experience that it's like, it totally backfires because then they just run from you. They see you coming and they're kind of like, oh God, you know, I'm going to get pitched. When what you really want is you want to empathize with them. The more you can educate yourself. And I want to applaud all of you for showing up today because you're educating yourself on the artists and the managers' needs and concerns and what they're dealing with in the marketplace. So it's like to understand that more, to empathize with them, to be able to be a friend and a colleague. Man, a few years from now, 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, who knows? But you've got a relationship and then maybe it becomes time to work together, you know?
Looks like Erica has a question, quick.
You're still muted.
First of all, thank you so much. This is so interesting and helpful. I have got 3 questions. One is, so I'm just coming out of a time of recovering from a severe car accident. So I haven't been working for a while. Things were going really well, like before that happened. And I'm sending out emails to agents at the moment. And I'm wondering 3 things. One, what are you looking for in an email besides obviously live video and, you know, a bio and some links? What are you looking for? 2, should I call people on the phone? And 3, should I mention that I've been out of work? Because, you know, people look on my website and be like, there's no, you know, gigs for a long time. Should I mention that I'm, you know, coming out of a time of recovering from a car accident? Those 3 things.
Well, I think COVID in a way has sort of given us, and I think I alluded to that earlier when I say I look at history, we kind of have to, you know, take a look at the last few years and put it all into context and think a little further back. So, I mean, my answer is I wouldn't call me. I would send me an email, and if I were you, and have your stuff ready. And here's my situation. I've been touring at a high level. I had a car accident. I'm ready to get back on the road. Here's, would you be willing to take a conversation? And make sure that all your stuff is right there and easy for me to find. That would be my answer. And then be prepared for the no's and, keep at it to find the right person.
Thank you.
And I've had people ask me after I've said no. I've had a couple of people write back and say, would you mind telling me what it was, what I could do to improve my ask? I've had people actually say that. And I've been able to say, well, you didn't submit a video, or the video you submitted, was unclear and I couldn't really get a view. But frankly, I can't take anybody else on right now anyway. And sometimes I'll say, no, everything was really great. I just can't take on another person right now. But I have had, and so it's not a bad idea to at least try and say, thank you for considering me. Would you mind telling me if there's anything I could do to improve my ask?
Well, the other thing, and I run into this with artists, don't approach somebody before you're ready. And if I take an artist on and I'm working with them to develop what they need, I only get so many chances to talk with a promoter and to pitch my artist. And if I present them with something subpar, I may never get another chance to talk about you to them. And, don't do a crappy showcase. Just don't. It's just the worst thing that can happen is for you and for the agent. It's like it can actually really hurt you. So be ready. When you're really ready, have the high quality video, not somebody that you're at sea and everybody's like moving all around that your friend took with their iPhone. Make sure that it's good quality stuff that you're going to present.
We are running out of time, friends. And before we end, I just want to take a moment to give a huge thanks to APAP for making this possible. We've been in collaboration with them as Compose Your Career to design a few engaging sessions like this that reach artists and to help really demystify a lot of what's going on behind the scenes at the conference. And if you like this session, please let us know. We also want to just briefly share our course with you, Compose Your Career. It's a course for musicians and artists that would never take a business course. And it's here to empower you. And Jayme and I are here to empower you. And I actually have a few available, a little bit of time I've made available on my calendar to do some one-on-one consults with artists. So if anybody wants to talk and chat and learn more about Compose Your Career, I'm putting my Calendly link in the thread right now. So come see me and say hello. And huge thanks to APAP. Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Willie. And huge thanks to Trish and Gail. Amazing input. So amazing and such great insights. You can learn more about Trish at Myriad Artists. What's your website, Trish?
MyriadArtists.com.
Yes. And wonderful roster. And Gail, your website is?
GailBoyd.com.
Yes. And
awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. It was an awesome day. Awesome session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, all the speakers. Thank you, Clay and Jayme and Trish and Gail, for all your work and for sharing this wisdom. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Willie, for managing this process. And we hope you have a great day. Fill out the survey, go visit everybody's website, and be well.
Okay.